When it comes to childhood musical memories, Camp Cope singer and guitarist Georgia Maq always gravitates towards one band. My childhood is marked by driving around in my dad's car. He had the Chicks' Greatest Hits CD. And that was what I always wanted to listen to, she tells Double J. They were always my favorite band. She's not alone. The Chicks, then the Dixie Chicks, were everywhere in the early 2000s. Their 1998 album Wide Open Spaces earned the band their first mainstream attention. It sold millions the world over and was an immovable fixture in the Australian country charts top 20 for an unbelievable 6 years. The first time I ever heard the Chicks was in my cousin's bedroom on Christmas Day when their Wide Open Spaces single came out, and it was just huge, recalls Australian country singer Fanny Lumsden. We would play it on her little CD player in her bedroom, over and over and over again. She lived out on a farm and we would just run outside and sing it with our arms wide open, just really living that dream. Before that, I hadn't really heard something that I had connected with so much. Growing up, the Chicks were always on video hits on a Saturday morning. Singer-songwriter Freya Josephine Hollick says, as a young girl, seeing powerful female musicians taking up space in the mainstream music industry was pretty inspiring. On the other side of the world, Canadian-bred, New Zealand-based artist Tammy Nielsen was finding direct inspiration from the trio's musical Time equals 400 ms. greater than. The first time I heard the Chicks I would have been a teenager, she says. I grew up in country music, in a family band, called the Nielsens, touring all over Canada in the States. So, country radio was the background of everything in our lives. It was the soundtrack. Hearing the Chicks for the first time, I loved hearing 3 female voices. I think the thing that grabbed me right from the start was that they all were accompanying themselves. They were all also incredible, world-class musicians. That grabbed me right away, being a musician and a singer, and really all about harmonies in a family band as well. Monumental success like theirs can be difficult to navigate at the best of times. When your views and ethos don't align with the industry you're a part of, you can very quickly find yourself as the enemy. If you don't know the story, it's pretty simple. Time equals 400 ms. greater than. At a concert in London in 2003, as American troops were preparing to invade Iraq, Maq said the band didn't support her country's military moves, and that they were ashamed to hail from the same state as then-President George W. Bush. Had the Chicks been a rock and roll band or hip-hop act, this mightn't have rankled. But in the hugely conservative American country music scene, this was considered plainly treacherous. Country music is a very conservative genre with a very patriotic fanbase, Nielsen explains. They spoke out in a time that women did not speak out in country music, and they were punished more severely than any other country artists in history. The band were blacklisted from radio, and fans turned their backs on the band. For most acts, the incident would have been a career killer. They had a patriotic song on the radio at the time, Travelin' Soldier, which was hurtling toward number 1. It was immediately blasted off the charts, Nielsen recalls. There were CD burning parties, and they were, I guess, the first artists to be cancelled before being cancelled was a thing. There was no conciliatory apology tour, no statement of regret. They remained a united front, standing behind their beliefs, while powerful people literally tried to destroy their careers. The level of fight they had, being from a Republican section of a gigantic country like America and still having the guts to stand up to that, is just incredible, Camp Cope drummer Sarah Thompson says. Time equals 400 ms. greater than. They had so much to lose and they didn't care, because they're boss bitches. And they stuck by each other, Maq adds. Then, when they went back to London, she said it again. She was like, I don't regret it, and I'll say it again, that we're ashamed that we have from the same state as the President of the United States. She said it again, which is incredible. Ultimately, the fight only made the Chicks stronger. Strength they'd need as they continued to stand by their unwavering convictions. They paid a price so high with their careers and continued, Nielsen says. They trailblazes a way for women in country music to build a career outside of the Nashville industry and system. They can still fill stadiums, but they do it on their own terms. They stood up and said they're not ready to make nice in the face of being absolutely banished from the career that they built with the audience that they built. Those convictions meant challenging their own behaviors. In 2020, the Dixie Chicks became the Chicks, inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement and the death of George Floyd. The name, which Marty Seidel and Emily Robison had picked as teenagers, hadn't sat right with the trio for some time, and their decision to change it once again caused a stir in conservative country music circles. For Freya Josephine Hollick, the move just reaffirmed the band's commitment to making country music something that everyone can enjoy. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than. Part of what I talk about with my band and with my manager is wanting to make country music a more inclusive space for everybody, she says. For it to not be like this horrible racist thing that doesn't speak to everybody. It should be music for people, not music for rednecks. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than. There's people like Orville Peck, who is endeavoring to make country music an inclusive space for everybody. I think that maybe that's a little bit of their legacy. By making decisions like changing their name, I hope that we see more mainstream artists taking a stand against that kind of stuff. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than. Changing their name may not change many minds, but that doesn't mean it's not the right thing to do. Maybe for people who are on the fence about things, or don't really understand the history of country music, maybe it's enough of a message to get across to people on the other side of the fence. Hollick says, "You just never know. Taking a stand against anything is worthwhile if it's a worthy cause." The trio's brand of country pop is accessible, but that doesn't mean it's simplistic or without depth. All three members are incredible musicians, and their harmonies are unbelievable, sweet and strong in equal measure. And the strength of their beliefs often finds its way into their songs. The song, "Goodbye Earl," was such a punch in the guts, Nielsen says. I think it hit everyone in country music between the eyes. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than. The 1999 song Nielsen speaks of tells the story of two old high school friends who kill Earl, the abusive husband of one of the women. There's a lot of murder ballads in country music. It can get pretty dark and deep, she continues. For the most part, it's men singing those stories or telling those stories. To have three women unapologetically sing about an issue, to talk about abuse in a way that was defiant and rebellious, and retaliatory was really incredible. It made everybody sit up and take notice. I mean, you always kind of sat up and took notice with the Chicks because of how incredible they were. But I think that song for me was a real big turning moment. I couldn't believe that radio played it. Country music radio is notoriously conservative, especially when it comes to women. For them to really defiantly kind of sing this anthem, almost a celebratory anthem about taking the law into their own hands and dealing with an abusive partner, was really a groundbreaking moment in country music. It took Georgia Maq a few years to understand the importance of the Chicks' feminism, which has only made their standing more prominent in her eyes. Being a child with a really smooth brain, I didn't know the reason why feminism existed, she says. I was like, oh, girls can play music too. That's cool and fine and normal. And then you grow up and it's like, oh, just kidding. They have to go through heaps more obstacles to do so. I just loved them. Just a genuine childhood, innocent love for the Chicks. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than. When asked for her favorite of their songs, Maq shoots back immediately. There's your trouble, she says without hesitation. When I was a child, I was maybe like 4 years old. I loved it so much. It's so good. If you're wondering whether the band are in good form as they prepare to visit Australia later this month, Fanny Lumsden has you covered. After performing at Glastonbury in July, Lumsden had the chance to see them play a big show on the festival's Pyramid stage. As we were walking over to the main stage, I could hear the music and I just felt compelled to run, she says. It literally propelled me. The music moved me in a way where I just found myself running to the stage. I ran all the way to the Pyramid stage. I got right up the front, and it was like almost spiritual. Honestly, I cried. I was just listening and watching them, and I just love everything about how they've stuck to their guns. They're just fierce. I love how they all play their own instruments up there on stage, and they've always just been their own thing. They're really just the ultimate. The Chicks play the following shows. Thursday, the 12th of October, Adelaide Entertainment Centre. Tuesday, the 24th of October, Brisbane Entertainment Centre.